Hailing frequencies open and welcome aboard Treks and Tangents. I'm your co-host Brian.
And I'm your co-host Jackie. I'm the Star Trek newbie who treks off on tangents.
And I'm your Star Trek expert who is here to get the tangents back on track. Each episode we watch and talk about a different Star Trek episode, and this week we watched
Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 13, The Conscience of the King.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. This was a wild week.
It is a wild week, or a wild episode. It's a lot of talking. But again, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. It's always fun to have you on board. And with that, we'll just jump right into the episode, see how much we have to talk about. We'll start it off as we always do with our Turbolift tease. And that's where we'll revisit last week's episode ending, where we gave Jaci the title of this week's episode. And Jaci, without any other information, tried to guess the plot of the episode.
I tried really hard.
You certainly do, every week. So, computer, what was Jaci's prediction?
Jaci stated last week, "So we are going to leave the zoo and we are going to go onto a royal planet. And, of course, Captain Kirk is going to have to help the royals make the right decisions for their people. You know, don't be all about me, and think about the people that are serving you."
So, Jaci, how accurate do you think you were for this week's episode?
Like I said, I tried hard, but I failed miserably.
Yeah, not really hitting on any of the points of the episode. Again, it's a hard game without any other context, but that's why we play it. So, what did you think of this week's episode?
I really enjoyed getting to see the different... It was interesting to see Spock be so concerned about what was happening on the ship, and then Kirk being like, stay in your lane, follow my orders, do what I tell you to do. When up until this point, they were more like a partnership, what it seems to be.
Yeah, we definitely have kind of the tables turned from the Menagerie, our last two episodes, where in the Menagerie, it's Spock who very much deviates from standard operating procedure and asks for a ton of leeway and a ton of forgiveness for his actions for very personal motivation and personal reasons. And now we have the exact opposite. We have Captain Kirk going off script, doing a lot of things kind of off the books, behind people's backs, for very personal, very self-motivated reasons, and asking for a lot of forgiveness and a lot of people to go along with it without any kind of explanation.
Yeah, all because he's the boss.
Right. So very much a juxtaposition. Probably pretty coincidental that these two episodes fall back to back.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because again, these episodes get filmed in a certain order, and then they end up being played on television in a different order in which they're filmed for post-production reasons. Networks will come in and make their own decision as to what episodes should be aired in what order. So, pretty coincidental, probably, that you have the Menagerie, Spock going quote-unquote off script, and then the King, who has Spock now playing the reverse role of questioning Captain Kirk.
Exactly. And I even think they changed up the bridge, like the creation of it. Or was I just seeing a different side of it?
I don't think at this point in the Star Trek series there would have been any major changes to the layout of the bridge set. Maybe very minor. Probably what we would have seen is different camera angles.
That makes sense, because I never see Spock sitting down, and this was like the first time I ever saw him sitting down.
I think we see him sitting down. Certainly we see other characters at... I know what you're thinking of. You're thinking of the computer station on the bridge.
Yes.
We see there are other times where other characters sit at that station and pull up information. I don't think this was the first episode to do that.
That's the first one I noticed.
Yeah. I also like this episode. It was pretty heavily criticized when it first came out. There's not really any science fiction aspect to it. There's no aliens. There's no...
Just chatter.
There's no phenomena that's trying to attack the Enterprise or endanger the crew. It's very much just Agatha Christie in space. It's a murder mystery. And so a lot of the television audiences back in the 60s didn't really care for that. I think it's a strong episode. It's certainly not the best. It's certainly not top tier. This is the best episode of the series.
Right.
But it's, I think, a nice little break to show something a little different. I appreciated it.
No, I completely agree with you. And I also think that's why they had Lenore always bring up the fact that he's such a powerful human and this man with all this stuff, but yet they're still machines. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but she kept on bringing it up.
Well, she's definitely, as a character, I'd imagine, well, let's just assume that this theater company is 20 years old. She would have grown up her entire life in it. 20 years of shadowing her father, living on the road. She definitely speaks the language of the theater. She's insane.
Oh my gosh, yes.
She's crazy. So
she does a good job hiding that.
Yeah.
Until she cracks.
Yeah. But ultimately, I think an enjoyable episode for both of us. But why don't we just jump right into the episode itself? And Jaci, why don't you walk us through it?
Alrighty. So we open up with Kirk and two other people. One, we learn, is named Dr. Layton, and they're watching a play being produced. I'm sorry, they're watching Macbeth. I should have just remembered that. And while they're watching, Kirk's friend, Dr. Layton, he makes a comment that he knows that voice. Speaking of the character playing Macbeth, that he is this horrible man of the past named Codus, also named Codus the Executioner. And then we have the opening credits with our favorite lines and my favorite soundtrack.
Yeah, it's a very short, cold opening. It originally was going to be a longer, more traditional cold opening. It was going to start with a shot of the Enterprise, possibly in orbit around a planet. It was going to show a poster, promotional poster for the acting company. And then it was going to fade out from the poster to what we ultimately see, the dagger during the scene from Macbeth. The director decided to scrap all that in the front and just have it hard open on that dagger for dramatic effect. I think it is pretty effective.
Yes, win-win.
Definitely captures everyone's attention.
Yes, I had to rewind it because I was like, wait, what'd I miss?
But then after the opening credits, we get Act 1.
And we are in the Enterprise on the bridge. But before that, we're also listening to Captain Kirk's log, and he's telling us that the Enterprise was redirected out of their normal course 3 light years, which I'm presuming is a large amount of time.
1 light year is a measurement of distance that equals the distance light can travel in 1 year.
That sounds like a lot.
Specifically, according to our friends at Wikipedia, 1 light year is 5.879 trillion, that's trillion with a T, miles.
Yikes. So yes, way off course. But they're off course because they're going to see a new invention that Dr. Layton created to help with. He created a food that would be able to help, hopefully, stop famine in the future.
Yes, a synthetic food substitute, which is
important.
And immediately in the episode, the very next scene, called out as being a lie, or revealed to be a lie, that they made up to get Kirk and the Enterprise to divert. Ironic that he would choose that as a lie when you dive deeper into the plot of the episode And the episode revolves around an incident in the past where a colony was starving, leading to indirectly or directly the deaths of half of the colonists. So a little interesting that he would choose this lie to say, I've created a new synthetic food that would end starvation, which would have been more helpful 20 years ago. But
No, you're right. Because also we learned that the Doctor and Kirk know all about the original incident that we're going to chat about.
they were there.
Yeah. So why couldn't they just said, hey, come on over. I found something out.
I think Dr. Layton, he doesn't have concrete evidence that, back up just a second, the real reason that Dr. Layton had Kirk and the Enterprise summoned to meet him is because he thinks that Anton Caridian, the main actor in this little Shakespeare acting troupe, is in fact Kodos, who was the governor of a colony 20 years ago that ran out of food, and his solution was to execute, put to death, half of the colonists so that the remaining half could survive. So I think the reason why he came up with the lie, Dr. Layton, was because he doesn't have concrete evidence that Anton is in fact Kodos. It's just a gut feeling. This troupe showed up at his planet to perform, make a living, and as he was watching one of their plays, he heard Anton's voice and recognized the voice. So that's when he got Kirk to come.
And interestingly, Dr. Layton, his side of his face is completely enclosed in black, as if he was harmed maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah. In our conversation in Dr. Layton's house with Kirk, Dr. Layton's wife Martha's present as well. We get a very abbreviated, disjointed history of what draws them all together. Again, Kodos, the planet, starving colonists, execution.
Very bad.
Kirk and Dr. Layton were both present at the colony during this whole massacre. We don't ever find out why Dr. Layton's face is covered with basically a permanent bandage. It looks like an eye patch because it incorporates part of his eye as well.
Yes.
Either he was marked out to be executed and fought back and survived. He led a resistance to try to stop the 4,000 people from being executed. Possible explanations. But the important part is we learn that out of all of the 4,000 people that survived, out of all of the eventual rescue aid missions to the colony to bring food and to save everyone, and then somehow Kodos escaped. We don't ever find out how. But Dr. Layton reveals to the viewers that there's only, he says 8 or 9. We find out later there was only 9 people who were present at that massacre, survived, and physically saw Kodos. And so Dr. Layton summoned Kirk because Kirk and Layton are 2 of the 9, and he wants Kirk to help identify whether or not this is Kodos.
Because on record, they have that Kodos is presumably dead because they found a burnt body that was unidentified.
Correct.
And so Dr. Layton feels this, and so he just needs like backup to confirm and then take him to prison. Like it's 20 years later.
Yes.
What will happen?
Yes. So very much a similar situation to other historical events where evil people who led giant massacres of a type of people were presumed dead because their burnt body were later found. Go do your history, go do your homework. We won't get into it, but there's a lot of parallels between historical events, real historical events, and I think this episode that they were trying to draw off of without calling it out directly.
That makes sense. But Dr. Layton decides to have a party at his house and invite the actors to his home so that he can actually meet the famous actor Caridian himself.
Right. And Dr. Layton obviously hopes that Kirk will attend, see Anton Caridian, and be another witness to the fact that this is in fact Kodos the executioner. Kirk, in this moment, refuses to participate in this plan and says he's going back to the Enterprise. And Kirk believes that the official narrative on the books is correct. Kodos was killed on the colony and his body was burned.
Kirk then is back on the Enterprise, and he seems to be in the conference room with his own computer station, which he tries to look up. He's not only refreshing his memory of what happened at that planet and massacre, but he also wants to find information on the theater actor Caridian. Like, who is he? So the computer tells us all about the massacre and how the governor had to make that decision on, who dies and who doesn't. He's also nicknamed as Kudos the Executioner. And then we learn about Caridian, and when asked how old he is, where is he from, any information before 20 years ago, the computer finds none. They only find that he's been a part of this theater group for the last 20 years. And he does have a child.
He has a 19-year-old daughter named Lenore.
Kirk then asks the computer to show pictures. So he sees a picture of Kodos.
Thank
you. I knew I was going to mess it up. Kodos. And then Anton Caridian. They look kind of alike, but not 100%.
No. One is certainly, I think, done up to... They do a pretty good job of... Obviously, they're pictures of the same actor. They do a pretty good job of having a picture of Kodos and have the actor appear 20 years younger versus how he appears today. But let's talk about this major plot hole here. Why is there a picture of Kodos in the computer? The whole purpose of Dr. Layton summoning Kirk to confirm the identity of Antoine Caridian of being Kodos is because there's only 9 eyewitnesses that ever saw his face and lived through the massacre.
Oh my gosh.
But there's a damn picture of the guy.
So anyone could see who he is.
And later, there's Kirk does that little voice analysis.
Yes.
So there's a recording of Kodos speaking. So they literally could have taken any of the plays that were recorded over the last 20 years. I guarantee you at some point that theater troupe had recorded it, and they could have just used that voice analysis, I guess. Huge plot hole.
Well, then we wouldn't have an episode to describe.
No, we wouldn't. They definitely should have just left the picture out of the records.
Just like a silhouette.
Something. That would even be a better thing. That would even have been a better plot point if instead of the only picture of Kodos that seems to exist is a very clear mugshot.
Yes.
Or picture ID photo. It's a passport photo is what it is. Instead of that being the only surviving picture, why not some kind of extremely blurry, covered in shadow, deteriorated photo?
Like the Bigfoot.
That's the only picture of Kodos that makes it, and Kirk is trying to make some kind of identification between that blurry photo from 20 years ago and a passport photo of Anton Caridian now, and make it so that there's just enough similarity that piques his interest, because this is what piques Kirk's interest and starts to change his mind. But again, major plot hole. Definitely the writers and the developers blew it by having this clear-cut photo of Kodos. It blows the whole plot point, the whole story out of the water.
I did not even think of that. That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So then, but while he's looking, Spock comes into the conference room, what you doing? And Kirk asks Spock, what was your opinion on Dr. Layton?
Yeah, Kirk wants to get some kind of baseline character analysis from a neutral third party, because Kirk's interests are now piqued, but he also still has this lingering doubt that Dr. Layton might just be blinded by seeking vengeance.
Yes, and it's been 20 years, so what's a third party's opinion?
Yeah, what do you think, Spock? Is he fucking nuts or what?
And Spock gives thumbs up, all kinds of positive opinions. So Kirk goes, cool, thank you, and leaves. And like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, he pretty much without further explanation tells Spock that, no, we're not going to depart for our next stop. I'm going to go back down to the planet. I'm going to continue my time down on the planet, and doesn't give any other explanation to Spock in this moment.
Kirk has returned to the planet so he can go to Dr. Layton's party. So also he can meet the actor Caridian in person, because he does believe at this time that Kudos is no longer alive. He's done. But instead of the actor arriving, his daughter shows up in his place because Caridian needs to have his rest.
It's also important to note that when Kirk first arrives at the party, Dr. Layton isn't there.
That's right. It's his wife that tries to make sure he's happy and enjoying his time.
Yeah, Dr. Layton's wife, Martha, tells Kirk when Kirk gets there and Kirk asks where Layton is. Martha says he's gone to town, but he's called ahead and said he'd be right back. I'm assuming Kirk called ahead to let them know or pass on a message that he was in fact coming to the party.
See, you know all the little details that I keep forgetting. I appreciate that.
But you're right, Kirk at the party grabs a cocktail, takes a sip from it, I'll point that out, and then in walks who we will learn to be is Lenore.
And Kirk inquires, is her father coming? And Lenore tells Kirk, oh no, he does not socialize with anybody. He's on his own. Oh, okay.
Yeah, a little strange, kind of suspicious even. I think that's also something that causes Kirk to start to wonder if there's some merit to Dr. Layton's suspicions.
You're right, because, he invited the whole party and only one actress is coming. So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but on the other side of the coin, you can also explain this away as Anton is just kind of a weird actor.
Yes,
Quirky, eccentric. So, also just point out for the fun fans, there's this fun little flirty interaction when Kirk is first talking to Lenore. Firstly, it isn't explained how Kirk recognizes or knows it is Lenore. He has to just, at best, recognize her from the play, because she does participate in the play.
Right.
And put two and two together that here is a 19-year-old or someone that should be 19 years old attending this party. And so he draws that conclusion that it must be Lenore, Anton's daughter.
There's a lot of assumptions.
Yeah, but there's never kind of a moment where he goes, oh, you must be Lenore. And she goes, why, yes, I am. He just goes into the conversation and leads it around to the fact that she's Lenore, and she doesn't confirm, she just never denies it. But she makes the fun, flirty comment that he has a drink and that she wants a drink, and she asks, oh, is that for me? And he goes, sure, why not? It's the same drink that he's already taken a sip out of.
Well, they don't believe in germs.
They also apparently don't believe in 21 as the legal drinking age. Unless it's not alcohol. I don't know.
Oh, it could just be punch.
It could just be punch. Maybe.
Well, that's why they, they decided to go on a stroll while they wait for Dr. Layton. So they're outside.
Yeah, they definitely continue their flirting. Kirk makes the suggestion that they go for a walk and get away from the party. Lenore quickly agrees.
And it's like Flirt City.
It is, but let's give Captain James T. Kirk the benefit of the doubt. Captain Kirk, who's in his early 30s, Lenore is 19, but let's give the benefit of the doubt and say that Kirk is entirely motivated and all of his actions are driven by this desire solely to get to the bottom of the suspicion as to whether Anton is in fact Kodos or not, and he wants to investigate this by talking to his daughter Lenore, and there's no ulterior motive whatsoever.
Okay.
This is another example of Kirk using his persuasion, charisma, charm on a woman to lead her to believe that he is attracted to her and interested in her in order for him to get what he wants.
So manipulating.
Go back to the episode Miri.
Oh, goodness.
He does that with Miri, where it's very obvious at that point because Miri's a child. But he definitely leads Miri on to thinking that he's interested in her. He's attracted to her. He wants to spend time with her. So is that what Kirk is doing in this moment? Or is he just someone in his early 30s who's hitting on a 19-year-old?
Either one is really creepy.
Yes. I don't know which it is in this moment.
You're right.
I think it veers closer toward he just wants to get to the bottom of things as the episode continues, but we'll get to that.
But at this point, I agree with you. We don't know. And it is really creepy when you think of it 19 versus 30, mid-30s.
Yes.
With lots of history.
I'll put into place, this is being recorded in 2026. We are applying today's society standards and our own personal opinions into this. We were not alive in 1966 when this first aired. We're not making any commentary to society in that time.
No.
We are making our own opinions based on society's viewpoints as our own opinions at this time. Not to upset anyone out there.
No, I mean, that's why I also bring up the John Wayne all the time, because that's how I grew up. It's very John Wayne, manly man, and lady needs rescue. Thank you so much. You're so handsome.
Well, that's also prevalent in Hollywood in general. Go dig deeper into the Indiana Jones mythos and his relationship with Marion from the movies. Dig deeper, look at that age gap. Never called out in the movies, but an interesting dive. And I still love the Indiana Jones movies.
Yes.
Even the crappy Crystal Skull. But anyway, let's get back on track.
We're taking our stroll though, and he's charming. They're chatting, and Lenore is just taken over, and she leans in to give him a kiss. And what's over there? He sees a body, and he runs to the man. The body is a male, and it happens to be his friend, Dr. Layton.
Yes, and he's dead.
Yes, very dead. And how did that happen? But then we jump back to his home, Dr. Layton, and his wife covers his body and says, at least he's at peace now. Like as if he was tortured soul trying to figure out what was up.
Right. Slightly interesting that everyone seems to draw the conclusion that he's been murdered. Also interesting that at no point is it mentioned if he is taken somewhere for some kind of forensic examination to determine a cause of death. Everyone just kind of throws their hands up and says, he was killed. We'll figure out why and avenge his death.
So this also, Kirk decides that he's going to change all his plans. In their talking, Lenore had explained to Kirk that they were on this ship called the Astral Queen. They had 2 more performances on another planet called Benicia. And, she was just chatting. So Kirk decides that he's going to call the captain of the Astral Queen and ask her a favor. So he connects to the Enterprise, to Uhura, and asks her to connect his call with the captain, John Daly, on Astral Queen, and scramble it. So probably to be in incognito mode. And okay. So then he's now talking to the captain of the Astral Queen, and he says, "Hi, John. It's me, Kirk. You owe me a favor. I owe you a dozen, Kirk. You're there for me. Great. So you don't have to worry about taking these players with you. Just go on your way. I got them. Okay? No questions asked. So Kirk is now going to take the play actors with him and take them wherever they need to go to Benicia. And John Daly can continue on.
Right. And all of this is being done behind the backs of the crew of the Enterprise.
So they're stranded.
This is really where Kirk is going off script and going behind people's backs to investigate this further, or force a series of events that will allow him to continue to investigate without revealing that he's investigating.
So then we are back on the Enterprise, and they're on the bridge. Kirk is ready to go, and Spock is like, we're good to go, just like what I said. Where should we go? But then Kirk's like, well, we have a pickup. What are we picking up? And as he's telling Spock what's happening, Uhura interrupts and says that Miss Lenore is requesting to talk with him. And she is already beamed into the transport room.
Yeah.
So, surprise.
Well, Kirk says beam her up and have her brought to the bridge. I think a very small note, but I appreciated it in watching the episode. We've mentioned in the past, sometimes it seems like to the viewer, it's hard to keep up with the passage of time because there's no transitions. It's just hard cut from one scene to another without any captain's log, audio cue, visual cue that's amount of time has passed. So I did appreciate the fact, even though it was probably 10 seconds of showing Lenore, it's a fun little thing to show a transition, to show that there is this little passage of time that she's being beamed up and being walked to the bridge. It makes it more believable than Kirk saying, beam her aboard and have her come to the bridge. And then 2 seconds later, without going anywhere, she walks onto the bridge.
Lenore definitely has the best outfits we've seen so far, just FYI.
Yes. Burn, a fun fact, she changes wardrobes 6 times in the episode. She wears 6 different outfits in the episode, which is a tie for the most wardrobes worn in an original series episode.
That's amazing. And it's all like faux fur, but they're probably like portraying real fur.
Yes.
But I found it really awesome that I like her attire. So she arrives onto the bridge and tells Kirk that they're stranded. Their ship has continued away, and perhaps Kirk could take them where they need to go. Any hems and haws, maybe, maybe not. And Lenore suggests, well, what about a private production performance in trade for that, for a ride to where they need to go? And Kirk does agree to that.
And Spock's on the sideline this whole time. He's kind of picking up on the fact that maybe things aren't exactly what they seem. Maybe there's some suspicion that Kirk has orchestrated this whole chain of events, especially because it seemed like Kirk knew about and anticipated the need of the transportation before the facts were revealed, because just before Lenore hails the Enterprise asking to speak to Kirk, Kirk makes mention that they're due for a, quote, pickup.
Exactly. And so they are directed to Benicia Colony, which is another 8 light years off their original course.
So then Lenore leaves the bridge of the Enterprise, saying that she's going to make arrangements for the rest of the troop to beam up to the Enterprise and prepare for the performance of the crew. As we leave, we get this kind of comical shot of Yeoman Rand entering the bridge and giving Lenore this kind of weird, dirty look, perhaps picking up on the flirtatious energy between her and Captain Kirk. But Yeoman Rand doesn't say anything. She just gives the dirty look, walks off camera to continue her duties, and we get a commercial break.
Kirk is at the computer station researching who are the 9 people who have seen Kodos in person. And the computer is, listing everybody. And he learns that Lieutenant Riley has seen Kodos in person. So Lieutenant Riley had recently been promoted to communications from the engineering, but Kirk has decided that he will need to be back into the engineering room just for the time being. There's no reason given, just because he said so.
I don't really know why Kirk does this. I think it has to be Kirk trying to play chess, and he's trying to set up the pieces to out Anton. He's maneuvered the Enterprise into a position and Anton into a position where he's on the Enterprise. I guess he's using Riley as bait, and he's setting Riley up to be down in the engineering room by himself as a likely target to be murdered. Kind of weird, but...
Because, I mean, even at this point, I didn't assume that anyone else was going to be murdered. I just had the same questions. Why are we demoting poor Riley?
Yeah, it's because it's not really explained at this point that these witnesses are being murdered. I don't think this is the part of the episode where we learn that Kirk, until recently Dr. Layton, and Lieutenant Riley are the only 3 recent surviving people out of the 9 that can identify him.
Exactly.
It's not pointed out at this part of the episode yet, so it's a little weird.
So, Kirk don't ask questions. But then we are moved into the sick bay, and Spock is talking with McCoy. Like, why is Kirk doing this? Why is he changing everything? Don't you think he's being weird? Like, and McCoy's like, well, I don't see anything wrong. It's the same old Kirk that we know. Just follow what you have been doing and what he wants you to do.
And again, we talked about it in the beginning of the episode. It's weird. It's a weird juxtaposition where Spock is not the rebellious one and Kirk has to defend the actions of Spock. Spock and Kirk have reversed roles, but McCoy has flipped 180 degrees as well. How many episodes did we see prior to this where McCoy is calling out Kirk's actions as being suspicious?
You're right.
Irrational, not logical. And now McCoy is coming to Kirk's defense. He basically tells Spock, hey, it's stressful being the captain of the ship. Let him do his job.
And enjoy this drink with me.
Yes, and enjoy this drink.
So Spock just kind of, leaves it, and he decides to do his own research on what is happening on his own.
Yes, and Spock pulls all the parallels together between Kurt, Layton, Riley, and Anton, comes to his own conclusions. He runs off to share all of his findings with McCoy, where we finally get the full version of what happened on Tarsus 4, the colony. They lost all of their food to a fungus infection. Kodos was the governor of the colony and declared martial law. He divided the colonists into half and executed 4,000 of them, half of the colony, so that the remaining half wouldn't starve to death. But he did so in a way that was largely based on eugenics. And he decided who was inferior and who should die, and who had superior genetics, qualities, and they were allowed to live. Spock also shares with McCoy in this conversation that Anton's history and records begin almost to the day of Kodos's supposed death. Kirk, Riley could all ID him, and this is where we learn that all of the other 9 people are now dead. So it is just Kirk and Riley as the last remaining people who can identify him, except for the fact that we have a photograph of him in the computer.
Riley is all by himself in the engineering room, bored out of his mind, so he decides, I'm just going to call up to the rec room and see what they're doing. Finds out that Uhura is in there playing what looks like a harp, and asks her to sing a song. So she does, and he's happily listening, doing whatever he's doing all by himself, and he's distracted when somebody sprays a liquid into his milk, and he doesn't see it because, of course, he's listening to Uhura. And then we see him start to drink the milk, and he is poisoned. Luckily, though, he was taken up to sickbay, where McCoy is making sure that he doesn't die. And in the sickbay, Spock asks how he's doing. McCoy is up front, says it's, he doesn't really know. Hopefully he'll pull through. And that's when Spock tells McCoy he needs to, or else Captain Kirk will be the next one on the list to be killed or targeted.
Which also makes no sense, that there's nothing to say that whoever's targeting these witnesses isn't going to go after Kirk while Riley is still in a coma. So we come back from the commercial break. We get a quick captain's log that McCoy is trying to figure out what poison was used on Riley. Cut to the sick bay with McCoy and Spock, where McCoy shares with Spock that the poison is in fact just a common compound. It's a ship lubricant for parts on the ship. So McCoy isn't convinced that Riley was poisoned at all. It could have been an accident, because the ship lubricant has the same color and consistency of milk. Spock himself is still convinced that it was poisoning, and he pulls rank on McCoy and says, no, we need to go report this to the captain.
They arrive at Kirk's quarters. Spock and McCoy tell Kirk what their findings are about the lubricant and being the poison. Spock is very certain that Caridian and Kodos are one and the same, but McCoy is still not agreeing. But he also asks Kirk, what will you do if you do figure out that they are the same? You can't just bring them back. They are already dead. And Kirk replies that they'll at least be able to rest easier. You know, they have their own justice. And we have a hard cut where it's just Spock and Kirk together when they hear a hum that's getting louder and louder and louder. And Kirk says that's a phaser. If it overloads, it will blow up and harm the ship. So he and Spock race around the room to try and find it, while also making an announcement that the two decks C and D need to evacuate in case that's where it is and they don't find it in time.
Right. And it's a lot of chaos. Spock is sent out into the corridor outside of Kirk's room to start evacuating. Kirk stays behind to continue to try to find the phaser. He's called for double red alert, which thankfully he does, because that's the only way that I think Kirk finds the phaser. It's in a light panel, and the flashing red light from the double red alert shows the silhouette. He manages to grab the phaser and dump it into some kind of laundry chute vent that I guess vents out into outer space. The phaser overloads, blows up, causes the ship to shake in a dramatic fashion to show, hey, if you guys didn't find it, it really would have blown a hole in the side of this thing.
Kirk finally decides that he needs to go to Anton Caridian's room and speak to him himself. He wants to confront him about if he is in fact Kodos. Caridian doesn't answer him ever. It just gives him evasive answers, describes like in half-truths, and just basically says he's tired. He's an actor. He can be anyone he wants. Anyone Kirk wants him to be.
This is definitely the part of the episode where one could argue this is where audiences would start to tune out as being too talkative, too wordy. But if you really pay attention, it is some of the best dialogue that we've seen so far in Star Trek. Kirk is asking Anton direct questions about, there's no record of you from more than 20 years ago. What were you more than 20 years ago? And as an elusive of an answer, Anton replies back, I was younger, much younger.
And Kirk then asks, I need you to perform this speech. I have it written here. He wants to get this recording to compare it to a known recording of what the real Kodos sounds like. Again, as we said before, how do they have a record of it?
Why couldn't they use recordings of any of the previous plays and his other works to compare it to? I guess one could make the argument no one was really suspicious of Anton Caridian being Kodos until very recently, so no one would have a reason to. But again, I don't think it'd be that hard for Kirk to pull up a recording of one of their previous plays, fire it into the computer to compare it to this speech, and come to the same results. But whatever. Anton reads the speech.
Well, he barely reads it. It's like he takes one peek at it and performs it beautifully.
Yeah, and it's the speech that supposedly the real Kodos gave back on the colony when he was announcing to the 4,000 colonists that to prevent everyone from starving, those 4,000 people would be put to death.
And of course, Caridian's like, well, I'm an actor. I can easily learn my parts. The two are interrupted as Lenore comes in from a side room and is angry at Kirk. Like, she basically calls him out for using her as a tool to get to her father. Like, you didn't really have feelings for me.
Yes, certainly at some point Kirk is transitioned, if there was a transition, from being attracted to her to using her to get closer to her father. Kirk quickly tries to excuse himself by saying, look, I'll go run the comparison of the recording I just took. If in fact your dad is Kodos, we'll deal with it. But if he's not, we'll let you go at Benicia and no harm. And another great line where Lenore tells Kirk, who are you to say what harm has been done? And Kirk replies, who do I have to be? But we get a hard cut to sickbay. Riley has apparently recovered, as McCoy reports into his log. McCoy also spills the beans to his log that Riley is a surviving witness to Kodos, that he was on the colony, that his parents were killed as part of this massacre. Meanwhile, Riley is sulking or sneaking or eavesdropping from the doorway to the other room and overhears McCoy. And now Riley is out for revenge.
Kirk and Spock are comparing the voice prints of the real Kodos and Caridian, and it's close, but not completely the same. So they can't 100% agree that the two are the same person.
No, Spock is convinced, and Kirk still has doubts.
And as they're discussing the voice print, Lenore and the players, the theater company, are in the rec room putting on a show of Hamlet for the Enterprise crew. Kirk is sneaking backstage as the play is going on, looking for Riley.
And he's looking for any clues to further incriminate Anton to possibly being Kodos.
Finally, he does find Riley and pulls him away from interrupting the play because he wants to do harm to Caridian, who he believes is Kodos.
Yes, he talks Riley down off the ledge. I personally found the whole subplot of Riley and how he discovers that Anton is Kodos and goes and seeks revenge. I didn't like it. I thought it was a thing that could have been left out of the entire script. Certainly, the connection of him being a possible eyewitness to being poisoned played a certain part in it, but it's just kind of a weird resolution to this subplot.
I think if they started it before, like earlier in the episode, it would have made better sense.
Yes.
During intermission of the play, Anton goes backstage and he is overcome with guilt. He trying to explain to Lenore that he's guilty about things that she doesn't know about that was before she was born. And as he's explaining or trying to explain, she interrupts him and says, basically, don't worry about that. After tonight's show, the last two people who know who you are not going to be alive anymore. She basically admits to being the one who's killed off 7 of the 9 people that know what his original identity is. And Anton is horrified. He had no idea that she was murdering all these people, yet she's so proud of herself and she doesn't understand why her father is not proud of her. While he was trying to prevent her from having his past force on her, she was trying to save his future, basically.
Yeah, and he's further upset because he feels personally responsible for these 9 people being killed. These 7 people being killed. He feels that their deaths are also directly on him for his actions. if he hadn't been the executioner at this massacre, at this colony, he never would be in a position where his daughter would have to perform these murders to conceal his identity. And he's upset, of course, because he viewed his daughter as pure and completely 100% removed from his past. And now she very much is connected to his past. Kirk, of course, hears all this from the sidelines and decides it's time to put an end to the play and this charade, and he has security come over to take Kodos into custody.
But Lenore snatches the phaser from security, and as Kirk tries to step forward and take the phaser from Lenore, Anton steps in front of Kirk as Lenore fires the phaser and kills him. With the death of her father, Lenore has gone over the edge. She has gone crazy. She first cries over his death and then just gives way to laughter. She's hysterically laughing about as she's being led away off the stage.
With a lot of Hamlet, direct quotes from Hamlet interweaved into her hysterics.
The rest of the performers are dropped off at Phoenicia as planned. McCoy reports to Kirk that Lenore will be in the best of care, and she does still believe that her father is still alive and everything is happy. He kind of pushes Kirk and, you did care for her, right? Give me the inside scoop perhaps. And Kirk just ignores it and asks for Lieutenant Leslie to break the orbit and go to warp. He and McCoy do exchange a look, but that's the only answer.
Yeah, McCoy says that's an answer. That's an answer enough. And roll credits. So, Jaci, what did you think about Season 1, Episode 13, The Conscience of the King?
I actually loved it. I know that we mentioned earlier at the time that it was not accepted greatly by the audiences, but I enjoyed the costuming, the blending of Shakespeare into the normal words. I just really liked it.
Yeah, I agree. While not well received by viewers in 1966, again, there's very little science fiction. There's very little action outside of the phaser explosion. And there's certainly no sci-fi elements to it. This is definitely, as I mentioned, a murder mystery in space. But ultimately, I like the break from all of that. We obviously can't do justice to the dialogue, the quoting of Hamlet, the quoting of Shakespeare. So absolutely, if you haven't watched the episode, go back and watch it. The actors do a fantastic job. It's definitely worth a watch.
Just for Lenore herself, that actress did wonderful.
Yes. But I have some triple tidbits or fun facts about the episode. First airing December 8th, 1966. Again, obvious connection and parallels to Shakespeare's Hamlet, the guilty conscience of a leader, the exposure of real-life crimes during a play, murder, death, the madness of a daughter. Again, just a fun theme, a fun idea to take an episode of Star Trek and have it mirror so closely to a Shakespeare play. For another great example, stretched out over a much longer period of time, if you haven't seen it, go watch Sons of Anarchy, the television show. Absolutely also is Hamlet to a T. The party music or the background music that we hear at the cocktail party at Dr. Layton's house is just the opening theme. It's just a redone, revision, jazz version of the Star Trek theme song. This is also the only instance where a double red alert is called. That's when the phaser was overloading. We later get this replaced. We have a yellow alert and then a red alert, which would be what a double red alert is. So we kind of streamline it a little bit more and give it a little bit of a difference. There were some scripted lines and scenes that were dropped from the script and never filmed. that would have established more backstory as to why and how Kirk found himself on this colony 20 years ago. It would have been established that Kirk was a fresh graduate from Starfleet Academy, probably serving his first couple humanitarian missions on the colony. But that would have conflicted with later accounts as to Kirk's age. You can imagine people would enter into the academy when they're 18. They would graduate 3 or 4 years later, so that would have put Kirk in his early 20s, which then means that at the time of this episode, he would have been in his early 40s, when in fact it is established that Kirk is in his early 30s. So it would have been a 10-year discrepancy.
And he'd be 40 talking to a 19-year-old.
Exactly. This episode is also the direct inspiration for the alien from The Simpsons and where he gets his name, Kodos. The other alien, Kang, also gets his name from a later Star Trek episode. So both aliens in The Simpsons get their names directly from Star Trek. And finally, the actors who played Dr. Layton and his wife Martha were actually married at the time of this filming. So
Oh, that's cute.
those are your Tribble tidbits. And this is the part of our episode where we rank the episode. This is where we pretend the episode is a member of our fictitious crew, and we assign a Starfleet rank to the episode, putting them on our fictitious starship. A higher rank means we found the episode not just entertaining when we watched it, but more important to our crew for the structure of the show and a more important episode. Of course, a lower rank also means that we found the episode to be a disposable member of our crew, and we weren't that entertained by it. Our ranks start at ensign, they go to lieutenant junior grade, lieutenant, lieutenant commander, commander, captain, which we can only have one of, and admiral. A perfect episode. Jaci, what are you going to give this episode a rank for your ship, the USS Galactic Glitterbee?
I'm going to have to learn how to demote people soon.
Yes, because the higher ranks definitely have a limited number of spots. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, you can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/trexandtangents and see a visual representation of all of our rankings.
So at this time, I am going to make them the 4th commander, and then I need to figure out who to demote on my lieutenant commanders in the future.
So Jackie's going to rank this a commander, a 4th commander for her ship out of 5, joining other such episodes as, I think that's The Dagger of the Mind and both the Menagerie Part 1 and Part 2. Still have one more open rank for commander for later if you wanted to fill it. Still no captain or admiral, but it's nice to see Jackie's crew rounding out a little bit toward the top. For quite a while, Jaci was putting everyone down in the basement.
Well, they deserve to be there. Just kidding.
So for my ranking for the USS Cosmic Shark, I'm going to go more middle of the road, and I'm going to give this a rank of lieutenant commander. Ironically enough, this will also be joining the same rank as my rankings for the Menagerie Part 1 and Part 2. This will be the 5th Lieutenant Commander out of 10, or the bottom rank of the limited rankings. I liked the episode. I'm giving it this rank, and it's not going to rank higher for me solely because there were some significant plot points that I just find to be unforgivable, especially when a plot point or a fact is so heavily relied on in the episode, specifically this idea that there's only 9 people that ever saw Kodos alive on the colony. These 9 people are the only people who can threaten his existence and identify him correctly, the motivation behind Lenore killing them all off. But again, there's a freaking picture of the guy, a mugshot, in the ship's computer that anyone could pull up at any time and compare it to this guy. And again, that just screams to me such a huge error in functioning. Also, we didn't cover, it's Star Trek. It's the future. Understandably, The show is limited by the technology and the imagination of the writers at the time. DNA testing was not a thing in 1966. But if we're just looking at Star Trek mythology and facts, they couldn't identify the burned body based off of his DNA, or better yet, dental records.
Or molecule makeup.
Or anything. It's a fantastic episode. It is absolutely worth a watch, solely for the ties to Shakespeare and the dialogue that is delivered. But when it comes to the actual plot points, there's just too many glaring holes for me to ignore to rank this higher. So, Lieutenant Commander it is. Again, as a reminder, you can see all of the visual representations, because this is an audio podcast, and what fun is that? You can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/treksandtangents, and you can see a visual representation of all of our rankings and the structure of our rankings. We post an updated version every Wednesday, the day after the episode goes live. We'll be back next week to trek through another episode, but before we go, we'll give our turbolift tease or elevator pitch to next week's episode's plot. This is where I give Jaci the title of the next episode, and Jaci, with no other information, will give a brief pitch to the plot. Jaci, next week's episode is entitled Balance of Terror. You want a hint?
That would be great. That's a great name.
So I will say that this is, if you wanted to say top 3 or top 4 episodes of the season, this is going to be one of them. I will also say, this will probably give it away, but I will say that we get to introduce a new alien species to the Star Trek universe, and they are going to be a very recurring alien species in Star Trek. Take it away.
Well, that doesn't help me at all. But if we're balancing things, good versus evil, so maybe they're a recurring bad alien because they're the good guys. I don't know.
I will say that yes.
Your hint didn't help me much.
The aliens that we are introduced are frequently villains in Star Trek.
Oh my gosh, I'm dumb. Well, then we're going to get better fighting power. So we're going to have a new person on board the Enterprise. Alien type.
All right. Join us next week to find out if the Enterprise gets a bad new crew member.
Or a good one.
If you want more show information, you can find and directly support our podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/treksandtangents. On the 4th Fridays of the month, we are currently posting our dive into the animated series called Animated Detours. That's what we call it. That's not what it's called on Paramount Plus. So hopefully you can join us for that. It's an episode where there's a lot more tangents, less trekking through the plot of the episode, because it's a cartoon from the 70s. There's not a lot of substance there. We find ways to fill the time. Hopefully going to have some more projects coming down the pipeline for our Patreon crew members. Hopefully you'll consider joining us over there. Again, free for everyone to see every week, and the entire backlog of our rankings as we go through the regular episodes. You can also follow us on x.com at treks_tangents. We're also on Instagram and Blue Sky at treksandtangents. And Jaci, where can people find you and what are you up to?
I'm all over the place, mentally and physically. You can find me most, though, at Jaboom on Instagram. And then I have a whatnot shop that's called Glitterbow Boutique. And that's what I'm doing. I'm showing my music, my fashion, weight loss, you name it. It's on there. Thank you.
All right. You can watch me stream a variety of video games over at twitch.tv/PiratePoundtown. On YouTube, I post video games and other random content on my main channel at Pirate Poundtown. And someday I'll get back to my secondary coin collecting and hobby content on YouTube at Pirate Treasure Hunting. I post socially on Blue Sky at Pirate Poundtown, and I can still be found on Instagram under Pineapple Cannibal because, well, we don't have time for that story this week. Links to all social media mentioned can be found in the episode description. Thank you everyone for tuning into this episode. We hope you had fun like we did, and we will see you all next week.
See you all later. Thank you.
End transmission.